guys, we got this great clip from one of our long content videos. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Enjoy. Tell me, what do you think is going to happen in this real estate economy? You're now 2 years into the mortgage business being kind of broken. It does feel like there's a shift coming.
I think, well, something's got to give. You can't, like a dam. If you stick if a stream, a little stream is going by and you put something into block it, a 2x4 or something, the water starts to build up. At some point, something's got to give. And I feel like that's sort of where we are right now. We're in this position where there's very minimal real estate transactions happening. Like if you look at I'd have to pull the numbers to really tell the exact numbers, but I'd have to imagine we're down 70, 80% in terms of transactions happening. So you have all these people on the sidelines, and a lot of people saying, hey, I got 3%, I'm going to die in this house. And that may or may not be true for a lot of people, because if you are in a position where you can stay in the property you're in, and you have a good rate, you may say, hey, I am going to stay here for the duration. So that's taking supply off the market. It's just a supply and demand story at the end of the day, right? For prices.
Yeah.
Now you have the corporate buyers who keep buying single family houses. I keep reading these articles. I haven't done the actual data dive myself, but the number of corporate purchases seems to be going up. Let's say you're a first-time buyer. Now you're competing with BlackRock on this house. Well, guess what? BlackRock's, if I'm the seller of that house and let's say I just don't care and it's purely money, and BlackRock's going to pay me more, close faster, with cash, overpay, do I really care? Like, you're a struggling young couple, and
I'll tell you what,
some people care, but
I have what I think is an interesting story about when all these hedge funds came into the market. I was entrenched in buying foreclosures in really all of Central Florida, several counties in Central Florida. And these hedge funds came on, and this is after the crash, and they literally were buying everything. And I remember going to it was BlackRock or Blackstone, one of the biggest hedge funds that were buying this stuff. They had a 40-foot sign in their office in Miami that said simply buy everything, right? And so me being the I'm willing to have the fight, right? So I'm there. I don't want to give up on my business. Clearly, these guys aren't going to buy everything. For a year and a half or 2 years, I cost them as much money as I possibly could. Like I made it my mission to run them up at the sale for 2 years, right? I promise I cost them millions and millions of dollars. It didn't matter. I couldn't compete with them. They had a theory that if they bought everything, it would all rise. To your point, as an individual, you have no chance. If you're bidding on the house against BlackRock's buying the house. You need to move on and go find one that they don't want.
If they're not interested.
And we have to do that as real estate investors, right? To figure out, okay, BlackRock wants to buy every 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot block. They have their stay in Florida. So what am I going to do? I'm not going to buy 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot block houses in Central Florida. I'm going to buy the wood frame stuff. I'm going to buy the bigger stuff, the smaller stuff, but you had to figure out how you weren't directly competing with them if you really wanted to win, right? It's either that or go out of business, right? Like I said, you got to figure this stuff out. But the individual who just wants to buy a house
now has to compete with these guys.
You can't win on the individual house. You've got to go find something they don't want.
I think that's a funny thing that, your average person buying a home has they probably have no idea what kind of a business residential real estate is. Like from a wholesaler, from an investor, how much is going on every single property all the time. You're just like a guy and his wife, or a couple, or a single person, whatever, and you're like, I want to buy this house. You see a house on some website and you're like, how cool is it? I want to buy that. You have no idea the depths of what went on with this house. Like 50 people competing for it. You know what I mean? Like someone's buying a note. There's just there could be chaos happening. You're just like, oh, I want to buy a house. Like you have no idea. The residential buyer sees the tip of the iceberg, and there's so much happening behind, and you would never know because you're just not in that business. Why would you know that? Just like any other business, I see whatever. I have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. Again, this is where I think government can come in and say something like, hey guys, let's sit down and come up with a plan. Clearly you want to buy houses. Clearly we don't have enough houses. How about this? We'll give you an incentive. You can't buy single family houses, but we'll give you tax breaks to build all kinds of new single homes, right? And of all the homes you build, you get to keep 20%. 80% go back into the pool for regular buyers, and you get to keep 20% with sick tax incentives to do this.
So let's talk about where do you see sort of the real estate industry, the mortgage industry going? And I guess maybe let's talk about it stateside, because whatever's going to happen there will eventually happen here in Puerto Rico. I know business has been tough in the mortgage business for the last couple of years. How soon does that change? Where do you think it goes from here?
I think that we still have this housing supply shortage. So I think, there's a couple layers here. I think it's 2024. At the end of December, early January, everybody was ecstatic. Oh, they're going to cut rates in March. And then we had a good reading, one of those months.
So they didn't go.
Inflation, we had a good reading. So then they were thinking, and then the Fed came out and was like, that might just be a fluke. We need to wait a little bit. And I think another reading came out later on that was a little bit worse. And then March was off the table. So I think maybe May or June, I forget when they meet again, but somewhere in this early summertime, let's say, possible cut, possible just hold. I don't think they're going to raise, but maybe they'll cut an eighth, a quarter, or they're going to push it further into the year because it's all data dependent. They've said it 100 times, it's all data dependent. So we have to look at the numbers and figure out, and inflation is not where they want it to be. They're not going to cut. Theoretically, if inflation were to go up, they could raise again. So I think we don't know what's going to happen. So you're just in kind of a wait and see, based on the data. But let's just make some guesstimates. So let's fast forward to the end of the year. Some point toward the end of the year, I think the Fed will cut rates maybe a little bit, an eighth, a quarter, something to that effect, maybe a half even. I don't know. So now, that happens. But with housing itself, there's still not enough supply. So I was just at we just had an event, and the speaker's name is Kyle Kovats, and he has a real estate school in New Jersey, and really sharp guy, knows his stuff, knows his numbers. And I'm paraphrasing some of what he's talking about. But he was looking at permits. Permits are a leading indicator of what's going to go on. So you pull permit,
like housing starts.
Right, exactly. Housing permits, excuse me. So you can look and see, okay, if the permits are up, that means 24 to 48 months later, there'll be more supply in the market. And it had been up, but I think now if you look at the graph, it's coming down. Why is it coming down? Well, builders, if rates are really high,
they're on selling what they did 2 years ago.
Right. So they're like, why are we going to build new houses? Because I can't make any money. So that the permits are going down, which means in the coming couple of years, the stock supply is going to be kind of flat again. Well, guess what? The children of the baby boomers are the millennials, I guess they are the biggest cohort since the baby boomers, possibly bigger, I think, than the baby boomers. And they're all finally buying houses because they waited a decade later than their previous generation. So now they all have jobs, they all got married, they all got kids, and now they're coming like the egg through the python, and they want to buy housing. So guess what? When you've got 5 buyers for every one house, that price, I don't see it coming down. Now, does it jump up? I don't know. Affordability is a factor. So I think what ends up happening there is rates come down, prices creep back up, and the monthly payment still hovers about where it is. It's still relatively high, pricing wise. And people who can buy will buy, and people who are priced out will be priced out. And we're sort of sideways for the next, let's say, 4 to 5 years. I really think until you have some sort of a program that increases the stock and supply of houses quickly, I think this is just going to be the story for a while. I don't know how we get out of this. I mean, baby boomers passing away. I mean, I don't know. I have to look at the math, but is that enough to offset the people coming up? I mean, people are living longer, and then they're not leaving their houses, right? Or maybe they go into a nursing home or long-term care, but that's not till 90, 85, much, much, much later. So I think until we see that housing stock supply increase, that's what I think the story's going to be. But I will say, if rates can have a 5 handle on them or a low 6 number, let's say, someone who really has to move, that wasn't really
start to
right. Someone's like, you know what? Let's put the house on the market and let's move from Chicago to Florida. The snowbird. My kids are all done with school in Massachusetts. We're out of here. We're going to Arizona or whatever the case may be, right? So you'll see that stock of housing come in. Maybe if that supply comes on, does that keep prices in check? Because now there is more houses for sale. I mean, it's sort of a wait and see, I guess. I don't know.
So you think it's still a few more years before it sort of settles?
Let's just talk pure hypotheticals. What outcomes could there be? I don't see a crash. I mean, now I will always put an asterisk next to that and say, this is what they told me when I was 22 years old, working at Chase. Oh, there's not going to be a crash. Housing always goes up. And then a year later, I was like, I thought the quants said that this would never happen. And it was like, the world is ending. Yeah. So I'll never say there's never going to be a crash because I don't think anybody really knows. And I think, macro factors like war and all these other things that who knows what could happen globally can change everything. So I put an asterisk that you never know. But based on like regular what we're talking about, where is this magic crash that was supposed to happen so many times? Like how many scrolls did I see? The housing crash is coming, and I'm like,
I've been wrong for years now. Like I thought we were going into recession. I thought the inflation was going to crush the market. I thought COVID was going to. There's just been a series of things where I'm like, okay, this is going to be really bad. Now this one, but somehow
it'll just be this slow. It'll just be this.
It has gotten worse, right?
Yeah.
Like so, it's definitely harder to buy a house now. Harder to
less people can qualify.
Harder to find a good deal if you're a real estate investor. All of those things are harder right now, but they still happen. But it seems to me like the crash never came. Like we never had this real bad recession type of thing that I thought was going to happen over the last, I thought probably it's like 2020 for every year for the last 3 or 4 years, I thought, oh, this is the year. It's going to really be bad. It's been kind of worse than it was before, but it never got really bad.
Right.
And then now I'll say this, feels like we're going to have a soft landing. So you guys write it down, probably all fall apart and crash.
Right, exactly. So it feels one way, and then all of a sudden the next thing happens. So, it's hard to say what I think's going to happen, but I think it's just going to be this like slower, not as many transactions, but there is pent up. There is 2 years of like almost nothing happening. So there might be a little bit of a bump, and then it kind of cools back to maybe we're here, we get a little bit of an activity bump, and then we land just above that level. So it's still not way up here, but it's a little better than it's been this year and maybe last year. We'll have to see. It's just higher priced everything. I mean, it doesn't look like it's going away.
Well, and hopefully there's something that happens where there's some more supply put in the market. And I think if they lower rates a little bit, the builders will build again. Right. So
they could do incentives.
They could do it.
And then builders might say that the rate doesn't really matter, because if I have some kind of incentive to build, it can offset that. And now these builders can build and again, this is what we talked about. They got to add supply to the housing market, because if you can do that, you can bring these prices down.
I believe that that's the solution, right? Like everybody is freaking out about the fact that rents have doubled in the last 3 or 4 years. And really what needs to happen is that you need more houses for rent. You need more houses for sale in order for this to come down. Otherwise, it can't come down, right?
Hey guys, thanks for watching that. Subscribe to our channel, watch this next, and then also check out the pinned content for more great content, guys. God bless.